Hey everybody, welcome back to Save Me Jebus.
Oh, save me, Jebus!
Today we're going to be talking about episode 2, Bart the Genius. But before we get into that, I kind of want to thank everybody for listening to episode 1 of Save Me Jebus. I listened back to it with headphones after it had aired, and I didn't think to do so prior to uploading the episode. And I really hated the way it sounded. But I just want everybody to keep in mind that this is a work in progress, and just like any other show, I'm trying to find my rhythm, and I'm trying to find a way to kind of get this to sounding good. Let's talk about episode 2. And I thought I'd start off talking about episode 2 by kind of giving the Bart chalk scene and the couch gag a rating, score of 1 through 5 or whatever. Kind of rating it on how much I enjoyed the gag or whatever. So the Bart chalk gag, it's basically Bart writing out, "I will not waste chalk." I thought that was really clever. It's just Bart writing it over and over and over again, "I will not waste chalk." What a nice first chalk gag, isn't it? So that one I would give a 4 out of 5. It didn't quite make me laugh, but I thought that it was clever enough. The couch gag, when the family all arrives home, it's Homer's and the rest of the family jumping on the couch, but Homer jumping in last, and then his weight causing everybody to scoot over and springing Bart up into the air, and Bart doesn't come back down. Except he does finally come back down once we see the TV. It's a little bit more of an interactive gag as to what later on we will come to see, kind of showing the gag extend into a second scene, which is, I thought it was pretty cool. But it's not that great. I think I would give it a 3 out of 5. And okay, so just to kind of jump into the actual episode itself and a quick episode recap. It's the family starting off playing Scrabble in preparation for the aptitude test that Bart will take the next day, and Bart's really not into it. The following day, Bart is defacing school property and he's ratted out by it. He goes and takes the test, and he ends up cheating by switching out the his test for his fellow classmate's test, the one who ratted out on him. It is revealed that Bart has an IQ of 216, I believe, and that allows the school to transfer him out into a gifted school, and Bart going and being surrounded by geniuses. And the family, the Simpson family, finally giving Bart some affection for his gifts. And eventually he comes clean after he can no longer keep up the facade. But he definitely tries to ride out the wave of Homer and the family showering Bart with affection. So like I said, Bart was defacing school property by tagging on one of the brick walls. Martin calling over Principal Skinner. And then Martin sticking around while Principal Skinner catches Bart. And then later on, he takes the test. And it is Martin who Bart switches the papers with, or the exam with. So I kind of want to say that Martin really blows. I mean, if we take a moment just to kind of list everything that Martin does, he makes himself extremely unlikable. Extremely unlikable. Alright, so he starts off by calling Principal Skinner over to report the defacing of school property. Principal Skinner comes over and Martin follows him along. And then while Principal Skinner is doing what he's supposed to be doing, he's there kind of inserting his voice into a matter that doesn't really concern him anymore. He starts off by correcting the tagging errors in the spelling. And then while Bart is getting caught, he sticks around to see Bart get caught. He's like, "Wow, you literally caught him red-handed." And then afterwards, he tells Bart, "Don't be small-minded and hold a grudge." Like, dude, how is Bart not gonna be mad at you after you literally just stuck around after turning him in? And then when they're taking the test, when the teacher's passing out the exam, Martin speaks up and says, "Hey, remember, teacher, that Bart is supposed to turn his desk around so that he doesn't try to cheat." And then as Bart is turning the desk around, you see Martin smiling very smugly with his arms folded looking at Bart. And then as Bart is overwhelmed with the test, he falls over, makes some noise, the teacher calls him out on it, and Martin says, well, he's not bothering me because I'm done. Can I go outside? And then he makes faces at Bart while Bart's trying to take the test. So, of course, Bart would try and stick it to Martin by taking his results, right? God, man. I mean, whatever. Martin sucks. So then Marge and Homer, they're walking to the school to check in, after being called by Principal Skinner because of the graffiti incident. And Homer actually spots the graffiti and he reads it and he's like, "Hey, look at this. I am a wiener." He sure is. Oh man. So Principal Skinner thinks that Homer should pay for the repairs instead of having the taxpayers spend their money on the repairs. And I think that that's very libertarian of Principal Skinner. I don't know if this is something that we're going to see more of proceeding forward, but at this point in time, it's pretty libertarian of Skinner to be like, hey, your kid did this, you gotta fix it. Principal Skinner also uses this as an opportunity to kind of call the Simpsons out on Bart's behavior. One of the things that he does, he pulls out a forgery note. And while all of this is happening, Homer is writing out the check that he has to give to Principal Skinner. And he's like, well, look, Bart has tried to get away with forging these letters that just frankly could not be written by an adult. And as he says that, Homer gives him the check and it's in the exact same handwriting. So it makes me wonder, did Bart actually forge it, or is Homer's writing really just that bad and that was an actual legitimate excuse letter written by Homer? I don't know. I'm gonna keep wondering. So then Principal Skinner calls in a psychiatrist and Homer's kind of like, well, what do we need a psychiatrist for? We know that our kid is nuts. Kind of really going in hard on the well, we're a simple family, but we know what's up. We know that our kid is not the best kid in the world. But the psychiatrist begs to differ and says that Bart is actually a genius and that his IQ test is so-and-so, right? It's 216, I believe. And Principal Skinner and Bart and everybody, they're all shocked. And Skinner wants Bart to be retested. But the psychiatrist thinks that, no, this is an opportunity for him to transfer out of school. And Principal Skinner is all about it. He's like, yeah. But so is Bart. Both of them, they're like, this is totally great. And so far in this episode, it really just shows how bratty of a kid Bart is. I mean, he knows that he gets to leave Springfield Elementary because of an IQ test that he cheated on. But he has yet to make any references of changing the test scores with Martin's. He's basically just riding out the wave, and it really shows with this comment when Lisa tells Bart, he's like, hey, everybody might think that you're a genius, but I still think you're a dimwit. And he says, well, this dimwit's on Easy Street. And then later on, when Homer is driving him to the school, he's like smugly just has his feet up on the car seat and telling Homer like, hey, just take your time, Daddy. No, there's no need to rush. And Homer's like, okay. So Bart and Homer, they walk into the school and immediately and Bart notices that everybody else is wearing a tie. So Homer offers Bart his tie. He's like, let me show you how to put on a tie. And then Homer goes, here, you clip it here and then you clip it there. And that's how you put on a tie. Oh my God. Oh man. And then Homer does something that really surprises Bart. He kisses him after putting on the tie. And Bart is very surprised by this. He says, whoa, you just kissed me. And Homer doesn't really know how to respond. He's like, well, it's pretty normal, isn't it? And it's a strange moment for both of these characters because it's a moment of realization for both of them that Homer's never been proud of Bart. Bart has never done anything for Homer to respond in this way. And now that Bart has done something worth being proud of, Homer approaches it by doing something that he's never done and thinks that it's pretty normal. But then he's not even certain himself, kind of taking a moment to be like, well, Like if you really want to dig into it, Homer not being certain is kind of like, well, has Homer actually done anything himself that his dad has been proud of? Because he's not even certain if fathers kissing their kids is a real thing. It was such a strange moment, but it kind of, there's something there to dig into if you really want to get into the psychology of it. And then Homer tells Bart something like, hey, here's your opportunity to do something that Simpsons have all dreamed about. And it's to one day outsmart someone else. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that's pretty funny, but whatever. And it turns out that this line actually becomes a little bit more relevant later on in the episode. So we'll get to that. Oh, and one of the things that I noticed too about the new teacher is that I think she's pretty much the same voice of Miss Krabappel. It's just a different character design. Like I said, Bart isn't doing too hot in these new classes, and he's quickly outwitted by the other kids. They take him out of his lunch and they kind of demean him and make him feel small. They call him a mediocre genius or something like that. I think that Martin would fit in here very, very perfectly. I guess the only thing to say about this is that even genius kids who are a little nerdy can be bullies themselves, huh? And then back at home, Homer offers to take out Bart to celebrate his first day of genius school. Marge comes in apologizing, feeling guilty for going on so many years of what she kind of blanks, trying to figure out what's the word for when you encourage something to grow. And both Homer and Bart are super confused and uncertain of what this type of word could be. Lisa quickly answers, it's nurturing, Mom. And Marge is like, yeah, that word. So even Marge is aware of Bart's personality. And I thought that this was a little bit surprising just because I think that Marge is very naive as a character. I remember her from other episodes where she would just be where Lois Griffin is kind of a slutty mom. Marge is definitely the goody two-shoe mom, I want to say. Yeah. But I thought that Marge would be the type of mom that would be oblivious to what type of child she has. So they go to the opera, and everyone's pretty much not enjoying it except for Marge and maybe Lisa. But Lisa even starts to join in on Bart and Homer's mischief as they keep making fun of the opera and stuff. I think that Lisa, she seems to understand what's going on in the show, but she's also thinks that the jokes are pretty funny and goes along with them as well. Of course, Martin is also at the opera, and the Simpson family apparently is bothering Martin's family. I go figure, right? Oh, man. So quickly, one of the things that we start to notice in this episode is that Bart's life, since he's transferred out to this new school, isn't actually any better. There's quickly a lot of negatives, but he doesn't decide to say anything because we can see that the positives outweigh the negatives. For one, like I said, Bart can't keep up with the school. The kids, they belittle him. His friends don't actually want to hang out with him. They tell him to go make a rocket instead of hanging out with them. And then Marge wants to take him out to boring stuff that he has no interest in. But the silver lining is that Homer is being super generous and super kind to Bart. Bart shows that he doesn't want to go to this foreign film that Marge wants to take Bart to. So Homer's like, hey, you don't have to go. And so I think that Bart was going to take this moment to kind of confess to Homer. But then Homer says, hey, let's go play some ball before it gets dark. And then the two of them have this really nice moment where they are playing ball with each other until the sun sets, and they're both having a lot of fun and they're both enjoying it, and Homer gives him the chance to speak up at the end, but then Bart just decides not to say anything. And I think that maybe Bart is aware that if he says something it'll ruin that moment, and I'm kind of glad that he doesn't say anything here. But then quickly, the next day at school, Bart sludges the building in a failed science experiment. The psychiatrist pulls Bart aside, asking him what's wrong, and Bart, and by saying something that, well, it doesn't take a Bart Simpson to know that something's wrong. And Bart tells him that he wants to go back to his old class. But why? He's like, well, I want to go undercover. I want to study them by pretending to be a regular dumb kid. See what makes them tick. And then And the psychiatrist is like, oh, it's like that Jane lady and being among the gorillas. And Bart's like, yeah, exactly. And then he goes, all right, well then here, write the proposal and then we'll try and get you in there. He thinks that the psychiatrist thinks that it's a pretty good idea that Bart wants to do this. So then Bart tries to write the proposal and quickly he starts struggling. But he does make an effort to continue with the facade. But then once he figures out that he can't write this proposal, he turns the page over and then he says, my confession. And he says, I am a dumb kid, yada, yada, yada. And so when the psychiatrist comes back in, he gives him the confession letter. And then the psychiatrist goes, you know, you misspelled confession, right? But I thought that this was actually a pretty gratifying approach. It's Bart continues all the way until the very end to try and BS his way around. He just can't. He can't. And I think that this kind of connects back to the, like, hey, maybe the Simpsons will one day outsmart somebody else. And he does it. He wasn't able to pull off the proposal. So he just writes his confession and comes clean. And so then Bart comes home. And Homer sees that Bart's covered in the slime or whatever, and takes him out back to clean him. And then that's when Bart tells Homer what's up and tells him that he cheated and he didn't want to say anything because he was riding the wave of Homer's affection, doing things that they've never done before, like hanging out as father and son and telling each other that they love one another, and that maybe what he did was bad, but there's some good that came out of it. And Homer's response is, "Why, you little," and he chases him back into his room. And here's another golden Lisa moment. Marge is like knitting, and she says, "What's going on?" And Lisa goes, "I think Bart's stupid again, Mom." Homer tries to outsmart Bart by saying, "But son, if you don't come out, I can't hug you and kiss you and love you." And then Bart goes, "You think I'm dumb enough to fall for that?" So I guess the Simpsons can't even outsmart each other. Oh man, and that's pretty much where the episode ends. Overall, I really like the episode a lot. I think that episode 1 was a little bit better than this one because it gave a lot of chance for the entire family to shine, while this one gave us more of a Homer and Bart episode. But I really like Bart riding that wave of giftedness and keeping it to himself, even if he struggles at school, because the perks from home and Homer really outweigh the negatives, as I mentioned. And Homer and Bart's relationship and the bond the two share is really nice, and it makes me want to play ball with my dad. And Bart's confession at the very end, he tried to BS his way out of it with the proposal until he finally just admits that he has to come clean. And the final thing that I really liked about this episode was, though Bart eventually does come clean, he never comes clean about it with Martin, and we never see Bart feeling guilty about taking this opportunity away from him. I can't really blame Bart because Martin really sucks. And I guess to finish off, I want to say that my favorite joke in this entire episode is Homer's handwriting being the same as the excuse notes. That's pretty much it. Like I said, this is a work in progress. Episode 3 will probably be different from episode 2, as episode 2 is likely going to be different from episode 1, and it's all good, right? I'll see you guys next week for episode 3. And that episode's title is Homer's Odyssey. After being fired from the nuclear power plant for negligence, Homer becomes a safety activist. So that should be interesting. I'll see you guys next time. Bye, cha.